live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and blasttheradio.com. This is The Lowell Green Show. The number to call and be heard around the world is 613-413-2217. Or email Lowell at blasttheradio.com. And now, here is Lowell Green.
Folks, anything, absolutely anything you want to discuss this afternoon. If there's any topic you feel deserves a public airing, then it's very easy to get in touch with us. But before I get into the program, I have a little bit of a complaint about you, the listeners, or some of you. It's a gripe. I don't understand why so few of you will share this program. I'm going to be very, very honest and open with you. I find it very frustrating. It's very disappointing. And in some ways, it's hurtful. I know I'm whining, but I spend a lot of time. I'm 86 years old. I spend a lot of time working in research. So does John. Because we care about the program. We care about the issues that we raise. But I'm going to be honest with you. If people don't care enough to just push a button, then I'm really beginning to wonder whether it's worth doing the program. I mean, I'm going to be very honest with you. If people won't take the time or effort to share, I mean, John, it's so easy. You just push the word share, and sometimes we'll have 600-700 views on Facebook alone, and we're lucky if there's a dozen shares. I mean, so what? About 1% of you care enough. So I know I'm whining. Maybe it's a product of my age or whatever, but I just find it so frustrating. It's so, I don't get it. I just simply don't get it. I mean, I've got sponsors who take all sorts of flack from people because they're sponsoring me, and I can't get any more than about 1% of you to share. I don't understand it, John.
So that's what I was about to say is, because do you think maybe it is kind of in the same vein as how you talk about Shields being your only sponsor? A lot of people are afraid to attach themselves to a conservative show. We got lots of people saying here, I share. Despite this, Lowell, the numbers are up, and don't forget too. Yes, listen,
you're talking about the overall listenership.
The overall listenership is up. Don't forget, it's more than just a live show. The live show is one thing, but it also lives as a podcast and as a video cast. So there's a lot of people who consume this show well after it's aired live. I was just saying, I come into the studio this morning and there's texts from like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, people participating when it's not live. But yes, I agree. We have typically well over 100, close to 200 people some days watching the show. The share button. That's all we ask. There's no paywall here. There's no ask for money. If you could just share it, because what we're starting to see is things are happening. The conversations we're having are affecting change. They're starting conversations, and that is all born of those few who do share it.
And I guess some of this appeared last night at the all candidates meeting in Canada, I understand. Yeah. The issue of the city's master climate plan was raised not only by one, but by several. And some of the councillors had a little bit of difficulty in responding to this.
There were quite a few that were quite uncomfortable. Yeah, I had a chance just to sort of scan through the Rogers 22 video of it. And there were some bombshells dropped last night that I think caught a few folks off guard.
One of them was Catherine McKinney, who is a very good chance she'll be the next mayor, was asked, why is the city spending all of this money for battery-powered buses? As you know, the battery-powered buses are more than double the cost of diesel. They don't provide a better service, etc. And so one of the questioners said, every battery that goes into our buses contains a lot of cobalt. She pointed out that cobalt is mined by young children in the Congo, in a kind of slave labor, and then is shipped to China for processing, and then China sends it to us. So we're by buying battery-powered buses, we are helping child labor in the Congo, and helping to finance China. And Catherine McKenney had a little bit of difficulty. Have you got her response to this, John?
I do. I can rack that up for you. It might take me a moment just to sort of fast forward through it, but here we go.
This is a question from a woman. We won't get into the question, but I have paraphrased the question itself. All of these batteries contain cobalt, and I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't know this, but cobalt is mined for the most part in the Congo and this is well known, by children, essentially slave labor, and then for processing sent off to China. So when this woman said, I don't want to pay all kinds of extra money for child labor in the Congo and to support China in order to have electric buses run by batteries. We got Catherine McKenney's response.
Yep,
this is Catherine McKenney, who, by the way, is the sponsor primarily of this master climate plan for the city of Ottawa. Go ahead, John. What did she say? This is Catherine McKenney.
Thank you, and thank you for that question. Absolutely, we can't just look to electrifying everything. We just can't look at batteries. If we're going to phase out fossil fuels, if we're going to meet our goals, we have to look at completely reducing our demand for energy, and we've got to look at increasing our use of renewable resources. But we can't just look towards electrifying all of our vehicles and using.
Well, that's the problem is that's exactly what the city is doing and what she has voted for, to electrify. In fact, the plan says that all electric vehicles will be all city vehicles will be electrified, and very clearly, these are battery powered. I mean, you don't drag wires around with a car. You've got a battery, and the battery contains cobalt. So she's talking through both sides of her teeth here. And by the way, when she talks about renewables, well, the renewables she's talking about are wind and solar. I just checked wind and solar today, and it's a pretty sunny day, and the breeze is pretty nice. Wind and solar today in the province of Ontario is providing about 10%. And this is what she suggests should replace fossil fuels. You notice we got to get rid of fossil fuels. But I mean, what hypocrisy. She says we can't electrify all our vehicles, but in fact, that's exactly what she proposes and exactly what she voted for. Hey, some of these councillors, do they not think we pay attention? Now, mind you, I'm checking the media this morning. I don't see any coverage of this at all. Did you, John?
Nope.
I don't
Nowhere.
know.
I mean, but this is the thing. This is what I'm saying. Share this show because this is a huge deal. I mean, we're talking about $20 every time you want to come into the city from outside the city limits. We're talking about $118 for a license for each of your cars to drive in the city of Ottawa. We just got rid of having to renew our licenses. Well, here it comes back. Areas of the entire city where you won't be able to drive in, forced to change your house to all electric heat, and on and on and on. And nobody's talking about this. There it is. It's on the books. Nobody's giving it any attention but the Lowell Green Show. If this matters to you, share it. People need to know and they need to get involved.
All right. I have to move on to another topic here.
All right, sir.
All kind of controversy concerning Ontario's Bill 7, the so-called More Beds, Better Care Act, which allows so-called bed blockers in the hospitals to be moved from hospital to long-term care even without their consent. Certainly, well, there's some question as to whether their consent, but certainly they can be sent to long-term care that they don't choose. Big feature in the Sun today concerning a local woman, who claims she was sent to a long-term care home that was not on her list, and she's very upset, doesn't think she's getting very good service. Now, I can understand her frustration. I would be too. You work all of your life to end up in perhaps a second-rate home where you're lucky to get, 2 baths a week? I'd be upset too. But on the other hand, look, we've got to do something to get people who do not need to be in hospital beds. We got to get them out of those beds. Fact is, okay, I understand her frustration. I would be too. But how about the frustration of the person? And I was one of those. I mean, from a personal point of view, the last time I was in a hospital, broken hip, I needed hospital treatment, right? Couldn't walk. Terribly painful. But there was no hospital bed available for me at the Civic. So for 3.5 days, I was shuttled around from a storage room to the hallway to some little, I don't know, cubby hole someplace to the so-called dome outside because there was no hospital bed. Meantime, there are all kinds of people in the hospital who do not need to be there because they do not require hospital care. They can be treated, they can be dealt with in long-term care. And and many of you people have experienced the same thing. You can't get a bed. But one of the reasons, not the only one, but one of the reasons is there are all kinds of people, they're called bed blockers, who don't need hospital care, but they don't want to move out of the hospital. So now along comes Bill 7, Doug Ford, says, look, if you don't need hospital care, we're going to move you into long-term care. Now, I admit that sometimes long-term care is not very good, but it seems to me that's the problem. I mean, if long-term care is not very good, then fix the damn long-term care problem, okay? And by the way, this business of so-called bed blockers, that's been with us a long time. I remember talking about this, John, back in the 70s. I did a little review. Back in the 70s, I was talking about that. In fact, the word or phrase bed blockers cropped up in the 70s. People in hospital beds taking up beds that they didn't really need, but no alternative. I don't know if you remember George Smitherman. He was in charge of, I don't know, seniors or whatever the hell it was. He was a son of a bitch. And people were complaining that they were only getting one diaper change a day. And George Smitherman, I remember dealing with this, and you may remember this as well.
I remember the story here. This is
George
gold.
Smitherman, who's in charge. He's the cabinet minister under Kathleen Wynne, and he says you only need one diaper change a day. He said, I am prepared to only wear a diaper one full day just to prove my point. Well, you can imagine the uproar over this. The point I'm trying to make is that this problem of bed blockers and poor long-term care has been with us for a long time. So it's freaking, maybe if nothing else, we'll free up some of these hospital beds and put more focus on long-term care. That's where the focus should be. Fix long-term care and you'll fix a lot of the hospital problems. And one of the problems when you're dealing with things like this is a situation where you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. For decades, we've sat on this problem, did nothing about it. Along comes Doug Ford. He said, you know what? We got to do something. I'm going to do it. He knows he's going to get flack, and he is. The opposition and some nurses associations are all upset and so forth. But it's got to happen. And the fact that some of the long-term care is poor, that I realize. So fix that. Don't send people to places where they only get two baths a week. That's not right. Fix that. So and I'm gonna keep pounding away at that as well. Fix the long-term care problem. The people who have worked all of their lives, they deserve better. They deserve more than two baths a week. Believe me. John, any response to any of this so far?
Yes, we do. And Angela says she just shared this to her group. Thank you. And we've got people sharing it out west in Winnipeg as well. Kelly says, I work in long-term care, and we don't have the staff even to support the residents we're caring for currently. How are we going to deal with the influx of these new people? And she was saying that just as you were saying, fix it.
Yeah, but that's a problem. But, I mean, it's the same problem in the hospitals. I mean, so it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. The fact of the matter is that these people do not need hospital care. There are people who desperately need hospital care. It's not the ideal solution. But I'm going to tell you, if you have any better ideas, I'd sure like to hear them, because this problem's been hanging around for decades. What else? I mean, what are we going to do with these people? They're blocking beds that people who are desperately ill need. They need a hospital bed.
Just
Go ahead,
so
John.
just so I'm understanding it properly, so we're talking then people are basically treating this like a hotel. They're refusing to go to the long-term care
Yes.
homes,
Yeah.
and the hospitals are saying, okay, fine, so stay here a little bit longer.
Yeah, they can stay as long as they want.
Wow.
Yeah, and that it's a serious problem, and you can understand why. People say,
Oh
"Well, you know
yeah.
what? I'm here. I'm getting great service. I like the nurses, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not moving." So Doug Ford says, I understand. He says, "Look, we understand, but you can't continue to take up beds that you really don't need." Now, I don't, Doug Ford's only been around for what, 3 years now, but obviously they've got to fix long-term care. There's the source of a lot of our problems, folks. Go ahead, John.
Are the long-term care homes licensed? Like, are there?
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah. So there's standards, et cetera, that they need to meet. So is that
precisely.
is that being enforced? Because I mean, otherwise, if it's not, and there's not a minimum standard, because I hear horror stories, and I've seen it within my own family, where some of my siblings or their spouses have had to put parents in long term care,
Yep.
and like fingers crossed they don't end up at this home. I hear horror stories.
Yeah, they're all provincially regulated and inspected and so forth. Yes, there's no question about it. But there's a shortage of staff, but there's a shortage of staff everywhere. It's just something we've got to deal with. I mean, restaurants are closing; they don't have enough staff. Manufacturing plants are shutting down;
Yep.
they don't have enough staff.
Yep.
Hospitals don't have enough. So, either we have to breed more or import more people through immigration. Simple as that, I guess. Go ahead.
You're absolutely right. I was at a Walmart the other day for the first time in a long time. Not that I frequent Walmart a lot, but the McDonald's was closed by 4:30 in the afternoon. There's no staff.
Yeah,
Uh,
AMW, the same thing.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. Comments are coming in fast and furious now. Keep that up, folks. And thanks. Share, 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 share. Thank you. Carrie says we need short, medium, and long-term care. For the short-term care, it could be anywhere available. Minimum medium care closer to home, and long-term care closest to loved ones.
Well, actually, Kerry's got a very good point. It seems to me, and I'm not alone in this, that the ideal place for people, if it's possible, is in the home. So maybe the problem starts in having people who can provide home care. If you can take someone out of a hospital and put them in their home and get proper care there, surely that would be the ideal situation. So, but what I'm saying is that this after hospital care is the problem. That's got to be dealt with. My preference would be do everything we can to make it possible for people leaving hospital to go home. I know when I left hospital, they wanted to send me to the Pearly for some rehab. I said, absolutely not. I want to go home. Now, I had a hell of a time getting up the stairs here, but anyway, we managed.
And you have a lot of stairs.
Yeah, now mind you, this is amazing. We ordered a special ambulance, and they had one of these stair crawlers. I couldn't climb the stairs. I don't want to get too personal here, but what I'm saying is that and I'm sure that many people share this. If we can, I think most of us would like to come home, but we need some help in the home.
Boy, we got a lot of comments coming in fast and furious. Get set to talk about Shields here in a moment. A couple more comments before we do that. Bang on, Lowell, says Gregory. Home care needs to be a priority for this aging population. Angela, thanks for chiming in on Facebook. Doesn't the government do a demographics of age of people? They should have known how many people were aging. Don't they know how many babies are born to know how many schools we need, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Kellyanne's got a lot of comments. She works in this field. She says, without enough staff, you'll never get the appropriate care. She says, right now, there are like 6 patients for every personal service worker out there. And she says paying people to take the course for free isn't working to help solve that.
Well, it's getting a few people. They're trying. Listen, this problem has been around for a long, long time. And one of the main reasons, and I have said this many times, John, one of the main reasons is that in this country and many others, we have concentrated almost solely on global warming, the environment. That's where the money has gone. That's where the energy has gone. That's where many of the staff have gone. We've got to build windmills, etc. That's the problem. Between $8 to $10 billion in Ontario alone for windmills and solar panels, where our hospitals were and long-term care was crumbling. George Smitherman was when was it when Kathleen Wynne? We're talking what 15, 20 years ago.
Yep, about that.
Okay, and so I mean the problem existed then. So, but instead of instead of George Smitherman fixing long-term care, which was he in charge of, what did he do? He went to South Korea and signed a $10 billion deal with Samsung for windmills. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Did Smitherman, who said, one diaper a day is good enough, did he do anything to fix it? No. What did he do? He went to Korea and signed a $10 billion deal for windmills. That is a fact, and I've got the damn deal right here too. So don't anybody try to tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm probably the only person still got the deal, okay? $10 billion. And go ahead, John.
You're absolutely right.
Drives me crazy.
No, I know, and rightfully so. And I absolutely understand the frustration when we are a massive geographical country and we are one of the lowest polluters. We contribute so little. I mean, we're trying to fix a problem that, even if we went 100% green, we're not going to make a dent.
You know what?
Things.
If these bastards really cared about the environment, what we would be doing, we would go to where the problem is, just like the problem is in long-term care. The problem is not in Canada. The problem with global warming is in China and India. So instead of spending all the money and effort on here, what we should be doing is going to China and say, listen, we're not going to spend billions of dollars here. We'll help you. We want to convert all of your coal-fired plants to gas, and we'll provide the gas. If we really cared about it in this country, that's what we would have done, and that's what the United States and Europe would have done too. Fix the real problem, not the pretend problem. Canada is not the problem. China and India are the problem. I got to calm down here, John.
And you calm down while I just say my little 2 cents here. Then we'll get a word in for Shields. I have no problem with going green, with electric powered vehicles and moving to solar power, whatever. But that's up to private enterprise to make the argument, just like when they came out with the Ford car originally, and they made the argument as to why it was better than horse and buggy. And the consumers decided it's the ramming this down my throat at all costs that's what's got my back up. If it's a better solution, sell me on the better solution.
No, I understand that, but the solution is not Canada.
No,
we're not the problem.
100% correct.
1.6. The problem is in China and India.
Yes,
that's where we should be concentrating. This is a pretend battle in this country because we don't have a problem in Canada. They have a problem in China and in India. And are we doing anything about that? No. In fact, we stopped a pipeline which would have allowed us to ship natural gas and oil to China. We stopped it. I gotta calm down here and talk about something good.
Let's do it.
What's the best thing I can right now is Shields. Once again, I just want to thank them very much. As I've said many times before, you sponsored this program. You're going to get a lot of flack, and I'm sure that they do. They never complain about it, but I'm sure. But they stick with me. It's working. Thank you all for buying from them, giving them a chance. It's local, and people always say, "Oh, we got to support local industry," and yet I still see people. They want a new refrigerator or stove or whatever. They just pick up the phone and phone bad boy or what. That's fine. That's your right to do it. But you're not supporting local if you do that. When there's a local that could compete with the price, probably give you faster delivery, and their family and local. Shields.ca. Yes, they have a great finance program. Yes, they do. And they're also a Sony dealership. John, go ahead. I've calmed down a bit here.
Oh, good. When you get amped up like that, I'm right there with you.
It is just so obvious.
It is. All right. Liberals turning Canada into a third world country, says Donald. Angela says, just found your show. Don't know how, but I'm glad I did. Angela, we're glad you did too. Please share it with others on your Facebook feed, seeing as they're probably like-minded. Chris says, my biggest frustration was we had a real opportunity to attack healthcare at the onset of the pandemic. Instead of shutting down everyone and paying out billions in CERB, invest a fraction of that into healthcare. They were transparent that their issue was lack of beds. Then address that. Make it an enticing career with good wages. It would have stopped the whole need to close everything down for 2 years.
It's got a very good point. Very good point.
And in the meantime, says Gregory, Canadian fuel sales, will save our national debt too and help our European allies. Talked about that a lot yesterday, Gregory. Let me see. Let's go to Eileen. I remember that mess with Smitherman, and you talked about it 20 some odd years ago. Then Trudeau came along. Yikes, she says. Let's go to Patricia. Angela, I totally agree. Census every 5 years, report written, splashy graphics. I think they're talking amongst themselves there, Lowell. That's okay, too. Let's go to
don't
Steve.
do that, please, folks, okay?
It's
That's not fair to us.
I know, but I get it.
But carry on your conversation, personally. But geez, not on the program. Go ahead.
Oh, I get it, and it's my fault for not being aware of what's going on there. I got a lot of balls in the air though on the show. Steve says there's a huge waiting list to get into long-term care. Thousands. That issue needs fixing first, and we've certainly talked about that. Terry says heard on the news a lot of young people want to get into nursing. Hard to believe, but that is great news. Yeah, but we got to find jobs for them, right, Lowell?
Yeah, well, there are jobs. They're advertising for nurses everywhere.
Would we have more if we moved to more of a, and I hate the term, but we don't have a better one, private hospital type system?
Oh, absolutely, and it's coming. Doug Ford is taking the bull by the horns. He's taken the bull by the horns in this. He's prepared to take the flak. I don't think he's going to run again. He just wants to do whatever he can to fix a problem that's been festering away like a smoldering dog turd on the doorstep for the past 100 years or so. Go ahead, Sean.
Off to Saskatchewan, and Murray says, in Regina, patients are being stuck in COVID wards, and then you can't go and visit them.
Yeah.
Eileen says, you're right, Lowell. Yep, you're right, Lowell. I'm visiting my brother in hospital now. He needs therapy. Another man beside him and another man who is dying. They should all be in long-term care. Fix the place. Patients may want to go.
Yeah, you know what? Let's stop spending billions on windmills and spend it instead on long-term care, home care, hospital care. Let's spend it where it's really needed, okay? Go ahead, please.
613-413-2217. We've got about 3 minutes left on the show. If you want to make a phone call, now would be the time to do it. 613-413-2217. You can text the show as well. Gregory on Facebook says, Fox News reporting on Canadian healthcare and our economy. Tucker Carlson makes it sound comical, but it's utterly tragic what is happening here.
I think a lot of people don't understand that we are slipping internationally on various scales. We are slipping further and further behind. We are almost the last of the developed countries in doctors per capita, for hospital beds per capita. At the same time, we're almost at the top of the chart for money spent on healthcare per capita. So the answer very clearly is not just money, but the answer is we've got to see some different systems here, and I believe they are coming. But you know what? If there's going to be any more privatization, there is going to be tremendous flack. Doug Ford's going to be called every name in the book, but something has got to change. Somebody has got to have the guts to do it. Go ahead, John.
Politics aside, that sounds like true leadership to me, and that's the kind of thing that I'm craving regardless of party. Somebody who's willing to take the flack for that. So credit where credit is due. All right, back to Chris, who has another comment. He says, you can also prioritize immigration for nurses. There are tons working in third world countries to get the needed experience in the hopes of a better opportunity. Wonderful, hard workers.
Yeah, the only question there is, there's a little bit of a moral issue there. If you're going to take nurses from third world countries where they are desperately needed as well.
True.
That's, I have a real problem with that. But I understand the sentiment, but we need to really think about that. Go ahead, John.
Murray in Saskatchewan is saying, Ford has been a huge part of your problem. I asked him why, and his response is he's part of the New World Order.
Oh, buzz off. Let's deal with the real problems here, not imaginary pie in the sky stuff. We're not going to collide with Mars, okay? The problem, dear whatever your name is here. Murray, dear Murray, is us. Okay, it's not somebody else. It's not somebody Schwab or Schwartz or Whicker or whatever his name is someplace. The problem is right here. Okay, right here. We are our own problem. Go ahead, please.
Just about out of time. We got about 3 more comments. Let me squeeze these in real quick. By the way, anything left over, I do email to Lowell. Anne says, with the debt held by the city, it's not the time to elect a radical eco-wacko as mayor. Catherine McKinney scares the crap out of me. Joshua says, most controversial of all to me is that they waived any public debate on this issue. I think he's talking City Hall. Sadly, there's no easy or perfect solution to the problem. I pray that no one gets moved to a facility too far from family and isolated. Nope, he's talking about healthcare. David says, Ontario's Ring of Fire is loaded with cobalt, lithium, and all kinds of natural resources. Isn't oil a renewable resource, he asks? And last word to Chrissy. She says, so these hospitals are closed on the weekends. Where did those patients transfer to? I imagine they would not accept patients to take care of the inpatients only.
No, it's the emergency wards that have been closed. Kempville, for example, for a few hours. Okay, not the hospitals themselves. Just want to keep it straight. Thank you all, folks. I'm sorry that my gripe at the outset, but it is a matter of frustration why so few of you
I get it.
will share. It seems to me if I go to this effort and John goes to the effort that we do, that at the least you could do is just give us a share. I'm not asking you for money. Just give us a share. That's all. Thank you all. Back Monday. No, back Tuesday.
The Lowell Green Show is seen and heard live around the world at 2 p.m. Eastern. Connect with us online at blasttheradio.com/Lowell Green. Can't join us live? Download the Lowell Green Podcast. Available on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Ask your smart speaker to play the Lowell Green Podcast. This is a production of blasttheradio.com.